Have you ever noticed how the moment you stop chasing someone, when your interest quietly fades, the entire dynamic flips on its head? Suddenly, they start acting differently. Almost like a mirror reflecting parts of themselves they didn't want to see. But why does this happen? What is it that stirs inside them when they realize you're no longer invested? Is it hurt, confusion, anger, or something deeper? And more importantly, how can understanding their true reactions empower you to maintain your peace and dignity in the face of emotional turbulence? This is a question many face in relationships, yet few talk about openly. The common misconception is that when interest dies, so does the connection, and what remains is simply silence or indifference. But that's not the full story. The reality is far more revealing and profound. When you remove yourself from the chase, their reactions expose their true character, their vulnerabilities, and their limitations. Understanding this not only shifts how you view others but also transforms how you value yourself. The problem lies in the assumptions we often make, that people will quietly accept loss, or that their attempts to regain attention are purely about affection. In truth, many of these reactions are about control, pride, or fear of change. Without recognizing these underlying forces, we get caught in emotional cycles that drain our energy and obscure our clarity. The size of this issue is vast because it touches everyone who's experienced fading interest, whether in friendships, romantic relationships, or even professional connections. It's easy to mistake the surface-level drama for rejection or failure, but Stoicism teaches us to see beneath the surface. Are you ready to stop spinning in confusion? Are you prepared to witness these reactions through the lens of Stoicism, where emotional resilience and clarity reign? Here's the solution. By exploring the 6 real ways they react when you're no longer interested, you will gain insight into human nature, strengthen your emotional armor, and reclaim your power. This is not about manipulation or playing games. It's about embracing the Stoic Relationships mindset, where authenticity, self-control, and inner peace guide your path. Stick with me, because what you're about to discover can radically change how you navigate disinterest and detachment in your life. This is not just another breakup or ghosting story, it's a masterclass in emotional intelligence, stoicism, and personal growth. Are you curious yet? Good. Because the moments ahead will reveal truths that most people never see, and when you understand them, you'll never feel powerless again. 1. The sudden curiosity phase. Have you ever wondered what goes through someone's mind the very moment they realize you're no longer interested? There is a sudden shift, subtle but unmistakable. Like the first crack in a facade that was once steady and unshakable. This initial reaction is often marked by what I call the sudden curiosity phase. It is the moment when they start to notice something's different, even if you haven't said a word. Your silence, your reduced availability, or the absence of your usual enthusiasm begins to speak louder than any conversation ever could. They might send more texts than usual, or initiate calls with a tone that carries an edge of uncertainty, attempting to gauge if all is well or if something has changed in your feelings. This phase is a dance of questions and probing, not always direct but strategic. Are you okay? You seem distant lately. These are not just inquiries but subtle tests designed to uncover the truth they suspect but are not ready to face. It is a complex psychological reaction because it taps into their own insecurities and fears about losing control. Why does curiosity flare so intensely when disinterest arises? The answer lies in the fundamental human need for certainty and the discomfort of ambiguity. When someone you care about begins to pull away, it creates a void filled with questions. And the mind rushes to fill this void, often with assumptions or worst-case scenarios. This phase reveals how much their perception of the relationship depends on your engagement, and how fragile that balance truly is. In a Stoic relationship, we recognize this as an opportunity to observe without attachment, to witness their reaction without being swept away by it. The curiosity they show is less about genuine concern and more about their struggle to maintain the familiar narrative where you are still invested. How often do we mistake these sudden questions for care when in reality, they might be manifestations of discomfort with change? The stoicism we practice invites us to ask, is their curiosity a reflection of their love or their fear? And to answer it with calm discernment rather than reactive emotion. It is in this moment that the dynamic shifts, not just between two people but within oneself. Are you prepared to see their questions as a test of your boundaries rather than a call for reassurance? Do you understand that their increased curiosity is a sign of their own vulnerability and not a judgment of your worth? This phase is often the most confusing because it is coded in the language of concern but underpinned by a desperate need for control. The deeper lesson here aligns perfectly with Stoicism's focus on what is within your control, your response. You cannot control their curiosity or their need to probe. But you can control how much energy you give to these moments. Will you react impulsively, trying to convince them of your feelings, or will you respond with quiet strength? Accepting that your peace is more valuable than any temporary approval? There is power in silence, and in not feeding the hunger for control that this curiosity phase exposes. Recognizing that their sudden questions are not about you but about their own fear can free you from emotional entanglement. In a world obsessed with instant responses and constant validation, this phase challenges you to pause, reflect, and practice emotional resilience. It asks you to remember the Stoic principle that external events do not disturb us. Rather, it is our judgment about them that causes distress. How much of your emotional energy will you spend deciphering their motives, and how much will you preserve for your own growth? This phase also tests your ability to stay grounded amid shifting tides. When curiosity morphs into pressure, when questions become demands, the Stoic path is to maintain composure and detachment. Understanding that your value does not fluctuate based on someone else's engagement. How often have you found yourself losing peace because you felt compelled to answer every question, justify every distance, or explain every moment of silence? The key to thriving in this phase is to recognize the difference between compassion and codependency. Compassion allows you to acknowledge their feelings without sacrificing your boundaries. Codependency traps you in their emotional turbulence, robbing you of your autonomy. By practicing Stoicism, you cultivate a mental fortress that holds firm even when curiosity threatens to break through. You learn to ask yourself, what can I control here? What is within my power to change? And you act accordingly, which often means giving less information, less explanation, and more space for them to face their fears alone without dragging you into the emotional whirlwind. The sudden curiosity phase also serves as a mirror for your own self-awareness. How do you respond to curiosity about your inner world? Do you feel the need to explain yourself endlessly? Or do you hold your peace as a sacred boundary? Stoic relationships teach us that we owe no one exhaustive explanations about our emotional shifts. Your journey toward detachment and growth does not require permission or validation. So, when curiosity arises from the other side, do you see it as an opportunity to practice equanimity? To respond not with defensive explanations but with quiet confidence? This is the moment when you redefine the power dynamic. You are no longer the one chasing approval but the one grounded in your own truth. The curiosity phase, while uncomfortable, is an inevitable and necessary part of detachment. It exposes vulnerabilities on both sides and invites you to step into your own strength. Are you ready to meet this moment with calm clarity? Can you embrace their sudden curiosity without losing yourself in their emotional storm? If so, you have begun the journey of true Stoic relationships, where external uncertainty is met with internal stability. This phase reminds us that human beings are creatures of habit and expectation, and when these are disrupted, the reaction is often a desperate attempt to restore balance, even if that means pushing boundaries or creating tension. But as a practitioner of Stoicism, you understand that peace comes not from changing others but from mastering your own mind. The sudden curiosity is their storm to weather, not yours. Your role is to remain the unmoved observer, the calm center in the chaos. As you navigate this phase, keep asking yourself, what is truly within my control here? How can I maintain my integrity and tranquility despite the noise? And how can this experience deepen my understanding of myself and others? These are the questions that turn confusion into wisdom and emotional turbulence into growth. In essence, the sudden curiosity phase is the opening act of a larger story, a story where you reclaim your agency and practice the Stoic discipline of focusing on what you can control. It is the first test of your emotional fortitude and the foundation for the steps that follow. Embrace it as a powerful lesson, not a setback. The way they react when curiosity arises reveals as much about them as it does about you, and through this awareness, you gain clarity, strength, and the freedom to walk your path unshaken. This is how Stoicism transforms relationships, by turning moments of potential conflict into opportunities for personal mastery and peace. So, when you see that sudden curiosity flicker in their eyes or hear it in their voice, remember this: their reaction is not your burden. It is an invitation to practice Stoic relationships, relationships grounded in mutual respect, inner calm, and emotional resilience. The question is not how you can make them understand your distance, but how you can hold your ground without losing your essence. This phase, with all its questions and tension, is the gateway to that mastery. 2. The Ego Bruise. When they finally grasp that you are no longer interested, the reaction often moves swiftly from curiosity to what can only be described as an ego bruise. This is a profound moment, charged with emotional tension, where their self-image takes a hit because the balance of control and validation they once enjoyed has shifted. Why does their ego feel wounded in this way? It is because many people unconsciously tie their sense of worth to external validation, especially in relationships. When you withdraw your interest, it feels to them like a rejection not just of the relationship, but of their very value. This is a harsh truth that Stoicism invites us to observe with calm detachment. Their pain is real, but it is their burden, not yours. How often have you encountered someone who suddenly becomes defensive, critical, or even dismissive once they realize they no longer have your attention? Their words may sting, but behind the criticism lies a deeper fear, a fear of loss, vulnerability, and the shattering of a self-image that depended heavily on being desired or needed. This ego bruise manifests in many forms, sometimes as anger, sometimes as passive-aggressive remarks, or subtle attempts to undermine your confidence. Have you noticed how they might bring up your flaws or past mistakes out of nowhere, seemingly weaponizing your vulnerabilities? This is not a sign that you are lesser, but that their ego is struggling to maintain its equilibrium in the face of your disengagement. Here lies a crucial lesson from Stoicism. To recognize that their reaction is about their internal turmoil, not your external reality. How can you keep your composure when faced with such emotional turbulence? The answer lies in the Stoic discipline of distinguishing between what is within your control and what is not. You cannot control how bruised their ego becomes, nor can you change their narrative. What you can control is your response, whether to rise above the provocation or to be dragged down by it. This phase tests your ability to practice emotional resilience and to embody the Stoic ideal of apatheia, which is not indifference but freedom from destructive passions. When their ego is bruised, they might try to bait you into arguments or emotional confrontations, hoping to regain their sense of power. Have you experienced moments where their words seemed designed to provoke, yet you felt the urge to stay silent and composed instead? This restraint is your strength, your mastery over impulse, which reflects true growth in Stoicism. In Stoic relationships, such moments are opportunities for reflection rather than reaction. Ask yourself, am I allowing their bruised ego to dictate my peace? Am I engaging out of compassion or out of obligation to defend myself? Understanding the difference is crucial. Compassion allows space for their pain without sacrificing your boundaries. Engaging out of obligation leads to unnecessary suffering. Another aspect of the ego bruise phase is its connection to pride and control. When someone realizes you are no longer interested, it threatens their ability to control the narrative and the relationship's future. This threat often triggers a defense mechanism that can look like anger or blame shifting. Have you noticed how they might say things like, "You've changed," or "I never wanted this to end," but with a tone that suggests accusation rather than sorrow? These statements are less about your actions and more about their difficulty accepting a loss they didn't want to face. This is where Stoicism teaches us to separate facts from interpretations. You might have changed, yes, but change is a natural and often necessary part of growth. Their accusation reflects their resistance to this truth, not a failure on your part. By reframing their anger as a sign of their internal struggle, you protect yourself from being pulled into emotional chaos. The Ego Bruise also reveals how much we humans depend on external validation for our self-esteem. Stoicism encourages us to build an inner fortress where our sense of worth is rooted in virtue and reason rather than approval. When their ego reacts with bruised pride, it exposes their reliance on external approval, which Stoic relationships aim to transcend. How often do we forget this in the heat of emotional exchanges? How often do we lose ourselves trying to soothe someone else's wounded ego, mistaking it for love or care? The Stoic path invites you to see beyond the drama and to hold fast to your own values and peace. As you witness their bruised ego, ask yourself, am I reacting to their pain? Or am I maintaining my own tranquility? The strength lies in the latter. Another vital insight is that the ego bruise is often accompanied by a sense of entitlement, the belief that their feelings or desires should dictate your behavior. This entitlement can lead to subtle manipulation, guilt-tripping, or passive aggression disguised as concern. Have you found yourself in situations where they imply that your withdrawal is unfair or selfish? Stoicism guides us to respond not with guilt or defensiveness but with clear boundaries and rational understanding. You owe no one an explanation that compromises your integrity or peace. In fact, your detachment may serve as a mirror, reflecting to them the need to cultivate their own emotional self-sufficiency. This phase is also a test of your patience and compassion. While you must not tolerate disrespect, understanding that their ego bruise is a form of human frailty can soften your judgment. It allows you to respond from a place of strength rather than reactivity. What would it look like to treat their bruised ego as an opportunity to practice forgiveness and empathy without losing your own center? This is the delicate balance Stoicism encourages. The ego bruise phase, with all its discomfort, is a powerful teacher. It forces you to confront your own triggers, to practice self-control, and to embody the Stoic principle that true freedom comes from within. The question you must continuously ask is, how can I maintain my peace in the face of their emotional storm? How can I honor my own journey without being pulled into theirs? These questions are not easy, but they lead to profound growth. Recognizing their ego bruise as a natural human response frees you from taking it personally. It reminds you that your worth is not defined by someone else's reaction but by your own virtue and clarity. This understanding transforms your approach to relationships and detachment, making it more compassionate, wise, and empowering. In the context of Stoic relationships, this phase is a rite of passage, a challenge to your inner fortitude and emotional intelligence. It calls on you to rise above pettiness, to remain unmoved by provocations, and to stay aligned with your values. How often have you wished you could respond with grace instead of anger? With calm instead of confusion? This is your opportunity. Finally, as you navigate this ego bruise phase, remember that Stoicism is not about suppressing emotions but about mastering them. It is about recognizing that the bruised ego you face is a reflection of their struggle, not your failure. It invites you to maintain compassion without compromise, to hold boundaries without bitterness, and to walk your path with integrity no matter the storm. If you find value in these insights and want to continue deepening your understanding of Stoic relationships and emotional mastery, like this video and comment number 1 below. Don't forget to subscribe so you can join me on this journey of self-mastery and wisdom. Together, we'll explore how Stoicism can transform not only how we relate to others but how we cultivate unshakable peace within ourselves. 3. The Overcompensation Tactics. Once the initial shock of your withdrawal settles and the bruised ego seeks to defend itself, what often follows is a phase marked by overcompensation tactics, a series of actions and behaviors designed to regain what feels lost but is rarely about genuine connection anymore. Have you observed how suddenly they may escalate their efforts, sometimes dramatically, attempting to reclaim your attention and affection as if their value depends entirely on your recognition? This phase is fascinating because it strips away any pretense of casual detachment and reveals a deep, almost primal response to loss. Grand gestures that once might have seemed spontaneous now come across as calculated attempts to reverse your indifference. Whether it's an unexpected gift, an emotional confession, or a barrage of messages timed at late hours, these tactics speak more to their inner turmoil and fear than to a sincere desire to rebuild the relationship on authentic grounds. The essence of Stoicism reminds us here to examine not just their actions but the intentions and impulses beneath them. What drives these overcompensations? It is often the need to restore a sense of control, to soothe the wounded ego, or to avoid facing the uncomfortable reality that the relationship may be evolving beyond their grasp. Are these acts truly about rekindling connection, or are they desperate attempts to reverse a loss that threatens their identity? Recognizing this distinction is crucial for maintaining your own clarity and peace. Overcompensation can be alluring because it mimics care and attention, which we all naturally crave, especially when disinterest is met with renewed effort. Yet, how often do we mistake frantic gestures for meaningful change? Stoicism invites us to question the authenticity behind these sudden shifts. Are these attempts consistent with past behaviors, or do they feel reactive and performative? It is vital to discern between genuine growth and emotional overreach that seeks validation rather than true reconciliation. This phase also challenges your boundaries and emotional wisdom. When someone's overcompensation becomes overwhelming or manipulative, it tests your ability to stay grounded and not be swept away by the intensity. Have you ever felt pulled between the desire to respond to renewed affection and the need to protect your own space? Stoicism teaches that our primary allegiance must be to reason and inner tranquility. Responding impulsively to these tactics may lead you back into cycles of attachment and emotional instability. Instead, observe these behaviors as external events, either good nor bad, but simply facts to be met with equanimity. Another layer to the overcompensation phase is the potential shift from genuine regret to performance, where actions lose their sincerity and become a show to win you back. How can you detect when this shift happens? Look for consistency and alignment between words and deeds, between past patterns and present efforts. If the gestures feel disproportionate to the nature of the relationship or disconnected from real change, they likely stem from insecurity rather than authentic growth. Stoicism reminds us to avoid being seduced by appearances and to focus on the substance beneath. Are you allowing the spectacle of overcompensation to cloud your judgment? Are you willing to wait for steady, meaningful changes rather than temporary displays? Patience and discernment are your allies here. This phase also exposes the challenge of emotional projection, where they may project their hopes, fears, or regrets onto you in the form of exaggerated gestures. They might say, "I never realized how much you meant to me," or "I'm ready to change for you." But such statements, while appealing, can carry the weight of desperation rather than conviction. How do you balance empathy for their pain with a clear-eyed assessment of their sincerity? Stoicism guides us to welcome honesty and growth while remaining vigilant against manipulation. It encourages asking the hard questions: is this a true transformation? Or just a reaction to the fear of loss? Are these acts sustainable, or are they fleeting moments of intensity destined to fade? This is where your internal compass must remain steady, anchored by the Stoic principle of living according to virtue and reason rather than emotional impulse. Moreover, the overcompensation phase can be emotionally exhausting, as the sudden flood of attention might rekindle feelings you were ready to let go of. Have you noticed how such intensity can stir confusion, self-doubt, or old hopes? Stoicism teaches that emotional mastery is not about suppressing feelings but about understanding their origin and purpose. When faced with this surge of gestures, take time to reflect deeply. Are these expressions aligned with your well-being and growth, or do they risk pulling you back into patterns you have consciously decided to leave behind? This reflection requires honesty and courage. It also requires patience, because true change and healing unfold over time, not in dramatic bursts. In this way, Stoicism offers a roadmap for navigating overcompensation with grace and wisdom, by focusing on what is within your control, your response, your boundaries, and your clarity of purpose. It asks you to resist the temptation to jump back into the relationship out of fear of loneliness or desire for validation. Instead, it invites you to cultivate your inner strength and let go of attachments that no longer serve you. How often do we cling to renewed attention because it feels like a second chance, even when the foundation remains unstable? Stoicism challenges us to prioritize our long-term peace over short-term relief. Finally, the overcompensation tactics phase is a mirror reflecting not only their fears but also your progress. How you respond reveals your own growth in stoicism and emotional intelligence. Can you receive their gestures without losing yourself? Can you honor their efforts without abandoning your boundaries? Can you walk the path of stoic relationships with integrity, balancing compassion with self-respect? This phase, while challenging, offers profound opportunities for growth, if you remain centered, discerning, and true to your own values. It reminds us that true connection is not about dramatic displays or desperate attempts but about steady, mutual respect and understanding. As you witness these overcompensation tactics, remember that your peace and clarity are your ultimate guides. You do not owe anyone your return, your explanations, or your forgiveness on their timeline. Stoicism teaches us that the journey to emotional mastery is paved with moments like these, moments where external chaos tests our inner calm. So, how will you meet this phase? Will you be swept away by the drama, or will you stand firm in your wisdom? Will you allow their fear to dictate your actions, or will you respond with reason and virtue? The choice is yours. And it is the essence of Stoic relationships. As you consider these questions, embrace the freedom that comes with detachment and clarity. Recognize that overcompensation tactics are a natural but temporary response to change. Your strength lies in seeing beyond the surface, in maintaining your equilibrium, and in continuing to cultivate the stoicism that anchors you no matter what storms arise. Through this lens, you transform what could be a moment of confusion and pain into a powerful step towards self-mastery and authentic connection. This is the path of the Stoic lover, the Stoic friend, the Stoic human, one who values inner peace above all else, who meets emotional turbulence with calm insight, and who walks forward with courage and grace. 4. The projection game. When someone realizes that you are no longer interested, a common but subtle reaction they often fall into is what can be described as the projection game. This psychological phenomenon involves attributing their own feelings, fears, or faults onto you as a way to deflect from their internal discomfort. Have you ever noticed how suddenly they begin accusing you of changing, or suggest that you are the one who has become distant or cold, when in truth you have simply withdrawn because you recognize what no longer serves your well-being? This projection is a defense mechanism, a way for them to avoid confronting their own role in the unraveling of connection. It is easier for the mind to blame others than to accept uncomfortable truths about oneself. This is where stoicism becomes an invaluable tool. How often do we find ourselves caught in these swirling accusations, feeling the sting of unfair blame or the confusion of being misunderstood? Stoicism teaches us to approach such situations with a calm and discerning mind, asking, what is actually within my control here? Is their projection a reflection of reality, or a distortion shaped by their fear and pain? Recognizing projection as a psychological defense can free you from emotional entanglement, allowing you to observe their behavior without internalizing it. It reminds you that their narrative is their own, shaped by their perceptions and insecurities. not necessarily an accurate reflection of your actions or worth. Have you experienced moments when someone's words seemed so charged with blame or judgment that you felt yourself shrinking? Questioning your own truth. The Stoic path encourages you to stand firm in your own reason and values, refusing to be dragged into reactive defenses. This is not about ignoring valid criticism but about distinguishing between constructive feedback and projection fueled by unresolved emotions. The projection game often reveals a deep struggle within them, a fear of abandonment, a reluctance to accept change, or a wounded pride that resists humility. They may say things like, "You don't care anymore," or "You're different now," with a tone that suggests disappointment or betrayal. How do you respond when faced with such statements? Stoicism offers the wisdom to respond not with anger or guilt but with measured understanding. You might acknowledge their feelings without conceding your boundaries or sense of self. This balanced approach protects your emotional sovereignty while showing empathy. Another critical aspect of the projection game is its potential to confuse and destabilize your own sense of reality. When someone persistently projects onto you, it can create a fog of doubt, making you question whether you truly changed, or if you misread the situation. Stoicism warns against falling into the trap of overanalysis that leads to self-doubt. Instead, it calls for clarity and steadfastness. Reflect on your values, your experiences, and your reasons for withdrawing interest. Are you acting in alignment with your principles? If so, hold to that truth firmly. The projection game also invites you to cultivate compassion for those who project. Their behavior is not malicious but a human flaw, an attempt to protect themselves from emotional pain. Stoicism reminds us to separate the person from their flawed actions and to exercise kindness without compromising our peace. Have you found that responding with patience rather than retaliation diffuses tension and helps maintain your center? This phase is a powerful test of emotional maturity and resilience. It asks, can you maintain your equanimity when faced with accusations that feel unjust? Can you see beyond the surface drama to the underlying fear? The answer lies in practicing the Stoic discipline of indifference to externals, understanding that you cannot control how others perceive or react, but you can control your own mindset and actions. Moreover, the projection game highlights the importance of clear boundaries. When faced with repeated projection, it is essential to assert your limits calmly and clearly. This does not mean engaging in arguments but rather communicating your stance firmly, protecting your well-being without escalating conflict. Have you noticed how healthy boundaries can shift the dynamic, often prompting reflection rather than resistance? This is the power of Stoicism applied in relationships. It turns emotional challenges into opportunities for growth and self-assertion. The projection game also teaches us about the pitfalls of attachment. When we cling to someone's approval or try to win their acceptance, we become vulnerable to their projections and emotional swings. Stoicism advises us to root our self-worth in virtue and reason, not in external validation. This foundation gives us strength to withstand projections without losing our sense of self. As you observe the projection phase unfold, ask yourself, am I reacting out of fear or insecurity, or am I standing firm in my values? Am I maintaining compassion without sacrificing my peace? This inner dialogue is the cornerstone of Stoic relationships and emotional mastery. Finally, the projection game often marks a turning point in the relationship dynamic. It exposes cracks that may have been hidden beneath surface harmony and invites both parties to confront deeper truths, whether that leads to healing or to a necessary parting of ways. Stoicism teaches us to accept outcomes without attachment and to focus on our own growth regardless of external events. How will you use this moment to cultivate your own resilience and wisdom? How will you transform their projections into lessons for your own Stoic journey? These questions invite you to embrace discomfort as a catalyst for profound personal development. If you find value in this exploration of human nature and emotional resilience, like this video and comment number 1 if you appreciate these insights. Don't forget to subscribe to join us as we continue uncovering the transformative power of Stoicism and Stoic relationships. Together, we can learn to navigate life's challenges with clarity, courage, and calm. 5. The disappearing act. When overcompensation fails to reclaim the connection and projection no longer serves as a viable defense, what often follows is the disappearing act, a withdrawal that feels sudden, confusing, and sometimes cruel. This phase is marked by silence and absence, where the person who once sought your attention now retreats completely, leaving you to wonder if you ever truly mattered. Have you ever experienced this eerie quiet after a storm of emotions, the cold void replacing heated words and frantic gestures? This disappearance can feel like abandonment, and the emotional impact is often profound. The question then arises, why do people disappear rather than confront the reality of your withdrawal or engage in honest closure? The answer lies deep within human nature and the mechanisms of self-preservation. Disappearing is often a defense, a last-ditch effort to protect oneself from vulnerability, rejection, or the uncomfortable truth that the relationship cannot be restored on their terms. Rather than face the pain of loss or the challenge of change, they choose to retreat into silence, hoping perhaps that absence will either force a reconciliation or allow them to avoid the rawness of emotional confrontation. This phase is particularly difficult because it leaves so many questions unanswered. Why did they leave? Was it about you, or about their own fears? Stoicism teaches us to sit with uncertainty without succumbing to anxiety. It asks us to accept what we cannot control, others' actions and decisions, while focusing on our own response. How often do we torment ourselves trying to fill the silence with assumptions, replaying every interaction to find meaning or blame? This mental turmoil, while natural, is also a choice. Through Stoicism, you can choose to redirect your energy from speculation to reflection and growth. The disappearing act also reveals the limits of external control. Despite their previous attempts to manipulate the narrative through overcompensation or projection, ultimately, they cannot control your path. When they vanish, it signifies that they have relinquished the attempt to influence you, and the power dynamic shifts decisively. Are you prepared to embrace this shift without despair or resentment? Can you see the disappearance as a form of respect for your boundaries, even if it feels painful? The Stoic perspective reframes disappearance not as abandonment but as an opportunity for liberation. It invites you to reclaim your time, your attention, and your emotional resources. What will you do with the space they leave behind? Will you fill it with longing and regret? Or with new growth and self-discovery? This phase also tests your capacity for patience and self-compassion. It challenges you to sit with the discomfort of absence and to resist the urge to chase or demand answers. Stoicism teaches that peace arises from within and cannot be given or taken by others. When they disappear, your peace is not lost unless you give it away through clinging or fear. Moreover, the disappearing act exposes the transient nature of relationships that depend on external validation rather than mutual respect and understanding. It forces a reckoning with what kind of connections you want to nurture moving forward, those grounded in Stoic relationships that honor autonomy, virtue, and clarity, or those built on dependency and control. How will you choose to invest your energy and love? Will you settle for fragmented ties or cultivate bonds that withstand the tests of time and change? The disappearance also raises important questions about closure. Many feel that silence denies them closure and leaves wounds unhealed. Yet Stoicism teaches that closure is not always external but internal. It is an act of self-acceptance and release, not dependent on the other person's participation. Can you find closure within yourself, independent of their presence or explanations? This is a critical step toward emotional sovereignty. Another dimension of the disappearing act is the mirror it holds to your own patterns. Have you ever retreated or vanished in relationships as a way to protect yourself? How did that affect the dynamic in your growth? Recognizing that disappearance is a human coping mechanism, both for them and potentially for you, can foster empathy and self-awareness. It reminds you that while disappearance may hurt, it often signals a deeper need for healing and boundaries. The challenge is to transform this hurt into strength rather than bitterness. In Stoicism, suffering is not meaningless but a forge for virtue. How will you use this experience to temper your resilience, wisdom, and compassion? The disappearing act, while painful, is also a powerful invitation to deepen your practice of Stoicism. It calls on you to embrace impermanence, to accept loss with grace, and to nurture an inner life that remains unshaken regardless of external circumstances. This phase can lead to profound transformation if met with courage and clarity. You learn to cherish your own company, to find joy in solitude, and to build a foundation of peace that no absence can erode. Finally, the disappearing act prepares you for what comes next, whether reconciliation, new connections, or the continuation of your journey alone. It teaches that relationships, like all things, are impermanent and subject to change, and that our power lies not in holding on but in how we respond. Can you welcome this phase as a teacher, as a doorway to deeper self-mastery? Can you allow their disappearance to free you rather than imprison you in grief? The path of Stoic relationships is paved with moments like these, where letting go becomes the highest form of love, for others and for yourself. As you navigate this silence, hold fast to the Stoic wisdom that true peace is self-generated and unshakable. Embrace the disappearing act not as an ending, but as an essential part of your ongoing growth and liberation. 6. The realization too late. Eventually, after the waves of curiosity, ego bruising, overcompensation, projection, and disappearance, there comes a moment that many find bittersweet and sometimes harshly ironic: the realization, often too late, that you are serious about your withdrawal and that your transformation is not a passing phase but a profound evolution. This realization often dawns when they look back and see that your absence is not just physical but a sign of your internal shift, a boundary firmly drawn, and a value system firmly anchored in Stoicism. Have you ever witnessed someone suddenly comprehend the weight of your detachment only after you have already moved beyond their reach? This moment is a powerful testament to how much human connection relies on timing, mutual awareness, and readiness. Why does this realization come so late? Partly because it requires confronting uncomfortable truths that many resist until forced by circumstance, acknowledging loss, accepting change, and recognizing that what once was can never be fully restored. The late awakening can trigger deep regret, remorse, and a longing for what might have been. Yet, from a Stoic perspective, it also offers a valuable lesson about acceptance and the nature of control. Can they control your feelings or decisions? No. Can they accept the consequences of their inaction or misunderstanding? That is entirely on them. This phase shines a spotlight on the inevitability of consequences that follow our choices and the importance of acting with intention before it's too late. Their realization too late is a mirror reflecting their own missed opportunities and resistance to growth. Stoicism encourages us not to dwell in resentment toward those who come to this understanding only after the fact, but instead to focus on our own integrity and progress. How often do we hold on to bitterness because someone failed to appreciate us in time? The Stoic path guides us to release this burden, reminding us that peace is found not in others' recognition but in living according to our own values. In this moment of realization, regret often surfaces with intensity. They may reach out with apologies, declarations of changed hearts, or pleas for reconciliation. Have you noticed how these late efforts can be both tempting and fraught with uncertainty? Stoicism calls for careful discernment here. Are these gestures aligned with true transformation, or are they expressions of guilt and fear of loss? Are you prepared to welcome them back? Or has your journey moved in a direction that no longer includes past dynamics? This is a crucial question because responding out of old patterns can lead to repeating cycles of attachment and pain. Stoic relationships demand clarity and courage, to accept reconciliation only if it aligns with your virtue and well-being, or to continue forward with grace if it does not. The realization phase also invites you to reflect on your own growth and the power of detachment. Have you grown stronger, wiser, and more aligned with your values since stepping away? Can you appreciate that your withdrawal was not a failure but an act of self-respect and courage? Stoicism teaches us that personal evolution is not always visible to others, and that our peace and virtue are the true markers of success. This phase underscores the importance of timing in relationships, not just their timing, but yours. When you act from a place of reason and integrity, you honor your own rhythm and destiny, regardless of whether others catch up. The late realization may also bring clarity about the nature of love and attachment. True love, as Stoicism suggests, is rooted in freedom, not in clinging or control. If their recognition arrives too late, it is not a negation of your worth but a sign that love requires readiness and mutual growth to flourish. How often do we confuse attachment with love, holding on long past what is healthy? This phase challenges us to redefine love as something that respects boundaries and honors transformation. Furthermore, the realization phase can serve as a powerful affirmation of the Stoic principle that external events are indifferent. What matters is how we respond. Their regret or newfound appreciation does not compel you to respond in kind. Your choice is sovereign and should be guided by your own wisdom and peace. Stoicism invites you to see their realization not as a final verdict on your worth but as an event beyond your control, an opportunity to practice equanimity and acceptance. How will you carry this awareness forward? Can you hold space for their regret without compromising your own tranquility? This is the ultimate test of Stoic relationships, the ability to engage with others' emotional realities while remaining rooted in your own inner calm. Finally, this phase marks a turning point, a crossroads where you decide whether to re-engage, forgive, or continue your path alone. Each choice, grounded in Stoicism, carries the potential for profound healing and growth. If you find these insights valuable and want to continue exploring the transformative power of Stoicism and Stoic relationships, please like this video and comment number 1 if you appreciate this content. Subscribe now to join a community dedicated to mastering emotional resilience and living with wisdom and peace. Together, we will continue to uncover how Stoicism can guide us through life's most challenging moments, helping us emerge stronger, calmer, and more fulfilled. As we arrive at the end of this journey through the nuanced and often turbulent ways people react when they realize you're no longer interested, it's essential to pause and reflect on the deeper lessons embedded in each phase. From the sudden curiosity that flickers like a spark of awareness to the bruising of the ego, the frantic overcompensation, the projection of fears and insecurities, the painful disappearance, and finally the often belated realization, each stage reveals not only the complexity of human emotions but also the opportunities for personal growth and Stoic mastery hidden within. What becomes clear through this exploration is that their reactions, while impactful and sometimes challenging, are ultimately reflections of their own inner struggles and vulnerabilities. They are not judgments of your worth nor obstacles to your peace unless you allow them to be. Stoicism invites us to take ownership of our responses rather than be governed by external circumstances, recognizing that true freedom lies in mastery of the self. It calls us to view these reactions not as wounds inflicted upon us but as mirrors reflecting the universal human condition: fear of loss, desire for control, and resistance to change. In embracing this perspective, we shift from a place of reactive emotion to one of calm observation and intentional action. This shift is transformative because it places you back in the driver's seat of your own emotional life. You learn to respond with measured clarity rather than impulsive confusion, to set firm boundaries rather than crumble under pressure, and to cultivate compassion without sacrificing your inner tranquility. The rhythm of these phases mirrors the broader rhythm of relationships and life itself, fluctuating between closeness and distance, certainty and ambiguity, attachment and release. To navigate this rhythm skillfully is to engage in the art of Stoic relationships, where authenticity, respect, and self-awareness reign. As you internalize the lessons from each phase, consider the power of detachment not as coldness but as a profound form of self-respect and freedom. Detachment is the space where your peace resides, untouched by the tides of others' reactions or the chaos of changing emotions. It is the foundation upon which you build resilience, allowing you to remain centered regardless of external storms. This foundation is not built overnight but through practice, reflection, and the steady application of Stoic principles. How will you cultivate this resilience in your own life? How will you transform moments of confusion and pain into stepping stones toward greater wisdom and emotional sovereignty? These questions invite a lifelong commitment to growth, one that deepens with each experience and challenge. Moreover, understanding the dynamics of these reactions empowers you to make conscious choices about who you allow into your emotional world. You become discerning, recognizing which connections nurture your growth and which drain your energy. This discernment is a gift of Stoicism, an ability to value quality over quantity, depth over superficiality, and virtue over fleeting approval. It is a call to surround yourself with relationships grounded in mutual respect, honesty, and emotional maturity, where both parties are willing to grow and support each other's journeys. In doing so, you create a community that reflects and reinforces your own commitment to Stoic values, amplifying your capacity for peace and joy. The exploration of how others react when you lose interest also highlights the importance of self-love and self-worth. Stoicism teaches that your value is intrinsic and not contingent upon external validation. This truth is a shield against the upheaval caused by others' changing feelings or behaviors. When you ground yourself in this principle, their reactions lose the power to destabilize you. You become a fortress of calm in a world often marked by emotional volatility. This perspective invites you to cultivate a rich inner life, one nourished by reason, virtue, and mindfulness, where your happiness and contentment are sourced from within rather than dependent on others. Such inner wealth transforms how you engage with relationships, making you less fearful of loss and more appreciative of genuine connection. It also fosters patience and grace, allowing you to witness others' struggles with empathy without losing your own equilibrium. Finally, this journey underscores the essential Stoic understanding that life is impermanent, and relationships, like all things, are subject to change. The reactions of those around you are part of this natural ebb and flow. To resist them is to resist the nature of reality itself. Instead, embracing impermanence and practicing acceptance liberates you from suffering and invites you into a state of tranquility. You learn to love without clinging, to engage without losing yourself, and to move forward with courage and dignity regardless of outcome. This is the highest expression of Stoic relationships and the ultimate pathway to emotional freedom. As you close this reflection, take with you the knowledge that their reactions, no matter how intense or confusing, are not the final measure of your story. You hold the pen, and you write your own chapters guided by reason, virtue, and peace. The wisdom of Stoicism empowers you to face every phase: the curiosity, the ego bruise, the overcompensation, the projection, the disappearance, and the late realization, not as crises but as opportunities to deepen your mastery of self. Through this mastery, you build a life rich in meaning, resilience, and authentic connection. May this understanding inspire you to walk your path with confidence, compassion, and unwavering calm. In the end, it is not their reaction but your response that shapes your destiny. Embrace this truth, and you will find that no matter what others do or feel, your peace remains inviolable, your spirit unshaken, and your growth unstoppable.